and welcome back to Workhorse Wrestling Network. You are gathered with us this fine Sunday for another episode of Enter the Square Circle, baby. All right, we are at the finals.
Yes, sir. Back again, as always, on Sunday for another episode of Enter the Square Circle. These are the finals of the round robin. Number one contender for the Enter the Square Circle World Heavyweight Championship, currently held by Bobby Lashley. There will be a winner of this tournament tonight and a new number one contender who will battle him at not. I said NAWT, not of Champions, coming up after our King of the Squared Circle pay-per-view, whatever we're going to call it. Tournament, I guess. I'm not sure what exactly we're calling it, but King of the Squared Circle. So, shall we?
Well, if we follow New Japan rules, we already have a winner.
Okay. Who is that if we follow New Japan rules?
Big E, because in his match with Seth, he beat him. So if it ends up in a tie in points, the victory would go to Big E by default. That's how New Japan.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we're not New Japan, but we could be. If
we are not New Japan.
We couldn't. We could not do it if we wanted to.
All right, so let's get this started. Drew and Tommaso Ciampa kicking it off on this final video for the round robin number one contender tournament. Unfortunately, neither of these guys, I think at this moment, Drew still has, right, or no?
Yes.
Yes. So if Drew handles his business and gets this win, he positions himself to be in the top three. He still will need help from somebody else to take a loss.
It would come down to Orton and Seth.
Okay.
If Seth wins, Orton is out of the top three.
Okay, and that would put Drew in. But if Orton wins, then Seth and Orton are in the top three with whoever wins, or I guess whatever.
Well, actually, I think it'd be a three-way tie. Between Randy, Drew, and Sheamus.
Oh, okay.
So, Sheamus would have to win his match too.
Right. Okay.
So if Sheamus wins against Sammy in the next round, if Drew wins this and Seth wins, we have a three-way tie.
Okay.
So if that happens, we'll have to do a triple threat, and the winner will be Seth's partner, but
let's just say that everything will be, we'll see what's decided. Everything should check out here tonight in this final video.
Tons of possibilities. There are tons of possibilities.
Lots of possibilities. Make sure and join us next week for the opening round of our King of the Squared Circle Legends tournament, in which we announced our 8 wrestlers last week. We'll announce them again at the end of this video in case you missed last week, so you'll know who's coming up.
And I'd also like to state that the Legends tournament will be the last we will see of 2K23, and we will be moving to 2K24.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Excuse me. Probably would have done. I'm going to get on my soapbox. Probably would have done the Legends on 24, but WWE seemed to make it fit that we can't download all of the Legends yet until you do XYZ in 24. So 23, I was able to download all the Legends and get everyone that we needed for the tournament. So hence why we're still in 23 for that tournament. So fuckers.
Ooh, Gippa.
Yep.
And Alabama Slam.
Power bomb. 1, 2, kick out.
Ciampa trying for his third win in the tournament.
Unfortunately, still looking at the top from the bottom.
If he does that, he would be tied with Drew in points. Drew only has one more win over Ciampa. Although if Drew wins, then he'll have 2 more wins than Ciampa. Ooh. This is going to hurt.
It sure is.
On the outside.
On the outside.
Ciampa got right back up, though.
Everything okay?
Oh, it looked like he went for a cutter and completely missed.
Oh, sweet. My wife bought me I have a purple Lakers sweatshirt, which anyone that pays attention to the channel has seen me wear before, but it got a little burn hole in it. And so it's now become like a house, whatchamacallit. And so I needed another one to be able to wear out. And so my wife got me one, but the first time I wore it, I pushed too hard in the little pocket in the front and it ripped a little stitch. And so I had my daughter fix it and she just fixed it for me. So it's all fixed.
Purple's red and everything. Some of the greatest players ever played for the Lakers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, probably like 4 out of the top 10 players of all time played on the Lakers.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Depending on your top 10, it could potentially be more, but there's definitely the 4 that I can think of off the top of my head. I can think of Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron James. Those are the 4 I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But there's probably others, too, that belong in that conversation, I would think. And honestly, LeBron's bounced around so much, I'm not sure what you actually consider him. Is he a Cleveland Cavalier? Is he a Heat? Is he a Laker? I'm not sure what he actually is at this point, but he's currently playing with the Lakers, and he's definitely one of the, top 5, top 10, if you're subjectively, wherever you put him. Players ever. So
I actually wasn't thinking Magic Johnson and Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh, you weren't? What were the other 2 names you were thinking?
I was thinking Chamberlain and Kareem.
Yeah, well, there you go. So there's 6. There's probably 6 right there because both of them belong in there too. Yeah, no doubt. That's why they're one of the most storied franchises in NBA history, right? There's no, and that's why guys like LeBron want to go there and play there. That's why, Kobe, when he gets drafted to the Charlotte Hornets, says, I'm not playing anywhere but LA. If I can't play in LA, I won't play. And so ultimately, gets his way to the Lakers and spends his whole career there. There's a reason why people want to play for those teams. So now, to be fair, nobody really wanted to play for the Lakers before Magic Johnson. They did, but they didn't. Like, the Lakers were kind of somewhat okay at the end of the 70s, but with the arrival of Magic Johnson and the beginning of the Showtime era, that's when they became the big-time franchise that they are now. They had Kareem, and they had a good squad in the late 70s, but it was really the arrival of Magic Johnson that turned that franchise to what it's become.
You can't sleep on Wilt Chamberlain, though.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't. You can't. The only difference between Wilt is that Wilt really did it when First of all, he did it when they were in Philadelphia, right? So they were the Philadelphia Lakers. Or yeah, is that right? Milwaukee Lakers, Philadelphia Lakers. So it's a little bit different. And two, I mean, he had other competition, but not in the same way that they do now. Like Wilt he faced a couple big guys, but the bulk of them weren't. He had size advantage over most of the people he faced.
Oh, yeah.
A big size advantage, which gave him a big advantage, you know. Whereas by the time like a Shaq came into the league, Shaq was still bigger than a lot of guys just because he's whatever, but there were a lot more big 7-footers at that time, 6'11" guys that were bigger as opposed to there were when Wilt was doing it. That would be my only contention with Wilt. But Wilt definitely belongs, anywhere, like I said, anywhere where you're putting people somewhere in the top 10, 15, 20, depending on how you see things, but somewhere right there. I mean, no doubt.
All right. So
1, 2, 3. Fucking Drew got the win. Future Shock DDT for the win. Drew making it harder and harder. Doing everything he can to try to get himself.
So let's say
Sammy Joe.
Those 6. 3 I have to add: Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Bill Russell.
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, I'd have to sit and think about my top 10. It's tough because Russell, like, for me, I think it's arguable that Bill Russell is the greatest winner potentially in NBA history, but
you wouldn't even put him at number 9 or 10?
No, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, when I think about who he played against, he was never even technically the best in his time. I mean, he played against Wilt. He played against Kareem. I don't know. I mean, he was never – he rebounded great and played solid defense, but his offensive game was always very limited. I don't know. It's so hard for me to think. I mean, you never win because of one person, but – I think of the impact that Bill Russell had on the Celtics, and maybe I'm naive and didn't see enough of it because it was before I was born, and all I've seen is highlights, really. But he didn't have the same impact on the game as far as winning goes, say like a Magic Johnson or a Michael Jordan or even a Kareem or even, I would say, a Wilt Chamberlain. So I don't know. I mean, I belong somewhere there. I probably, 9, 10, 11. I mean, somewhere probably right around there. I mean, I'm not, again, I'd have to sit with those names because it's so, again, it's the best ever. I mean, easily Michael Jordan's the best basketball player ever I've ever seen. I think hands down. I think that's, people will try to debate that LeBron is whatever, but I don't think there's even a debate there, in my opinion. I think Michael Jordan's always going to be, well, not always. I mean, as of now, he's at number 1.
I could see there being a debate.
And then it gets really hairy from there because I just don't know. Like, for me, and I think it's debatable subjectively. He's my second favorite, and I think you could argue he's the second best ever. I mean, I think Kobe could be in that position, but a lot of people think he's the second best, the first best impersonation of Michael Jordan, but not, like, I don't know, like there were still better people even in his generation, which I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not. It's tough. I don't know. There's so much debate. I mean, people love Tim Duncan, who won 5 championships and should, for all intents and purposes, the big fundamental should be.
I was actually about to say, I think I put him at the number 10 spot.
Somewhere in that top 10 spot, but God, the dude was incredibly boring. Like, I mean, he was fundamentally sound. He won a lot, but he wasn't very exciting to watch, like in the scheme of things. And I know that's not what we're talking about as far as best goes, but I don't know. Like,
Uh,
it's still such a subjective question because there's a lot of people with numbers that are, could be
well,
considered as similar,
like
and so or
dudes,
even shorter careers that like didn't have the longevity. So I don't know.
a
It's tough.
couple names that I'd have in my top 20. You got Steph Curry.
Oh
You
yeah,
got Kevin Durant,
yep.
Charles
I think that
Barkley.
was yeah.
Uh, uh,
Allen Iverson belongs in that conversation somewhere.
top 20. Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I believe that. I believe that. Um, Probably Hakeem Olajuwon belongs in that conversation somewhere.
I'd also say
Um,
Jerry West.
yeah, there's a lot of older guys that probably. I mean that. Yeah, I mean that's not addressing a lot of the older guys. You got Jerry West. You got the Oscar Robertsons. You got the Bernard Kings. Pete
Muggsy.
Maraviches. I mean the Muggsy Bogues. Yeah, I mean
I'd put him like 17, 18 for me personally. I'd put him like 17, 18.
Yeah, I think that's probably more like a favorite kind of spotting than
Okay,
a
yeah.
best kind of spotting. But I mean, he had a solid career. I just don't know that I don't know how high he would be. I'd be interested to see. I don't even know if he's in like the NBA's top 50 all time. I'd have to look and see that. I don't know where he sits in regards to that. But no, I mean,
But like he was the smallest dude on the court and he was out playing everybody. Like what you said about Wilt Chamberlain about him being bigger than everybody else. There was Muggsy smaller than everybody else and
yeah,
doing great plays.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, 100%. I mean, dude was an incredible basketball player for sure. And if he had been 6'5" or 6'6", he might very well have been one of the greatest of all time. I mean, it might very well be that his
Well, he
height
would be
is
in a
the only
top
thing that
10
kept him from
conversation
being
instead of a top 20.
right, right, yeah, or whatever, wherever you put him. So, yeah, I mean, it might only be his height that ever kept him from being, considered better. Um, but some guys have had longer careers than others. Like Magic's career was obviously cut short because of his AIDS diagnosis. So, I mean, he only played 11 years. I mean, and Jordan only played 11 or 12 years. I mean, if both of them played 20 like Kareem and Kobe and LeBron, or 19 like Karl Malone, or 18 like John Stockton, we might, who knows what those numbers would look like or what we would be saying. Like, I mean, I don't, I mean, we already say Michael's the best, so I mean, he didn't have anything else to prove it with more longevity. But so I mean, it's all, I don't know. Some of that stuff is definitely up for debate. It's all, even with the best questions, it's all still subjective, right? Because there's no right or wrong answer. It's all really who you think is the best. I mean, I think the only real, in my opinion, and there's a few people that argue it, but I think the only real one that there's no argument for is just that Michael Jordan's the best of all time. I mean, I think that's.
So you'd put Allen Iverson over Scottie Pippen?
Ooh. God, I don't know. That's really tough. Man. I mean, Scottie Pippen invented that point forward position. I mean, there was a period of time where Scottie Pippen was the second best basketball player in the league behind Michael Jordan, the other guy on his team. I mean, uh, the only reason I lean a little towards Iverson, Pippen's defense was out of this world as opposed to Iverson's. I mean, Iverson's defense was okay. He was never the best defender. Iverson, I feel like Pippen ultimately, and it's not his fault, but by default, suffers a little by playing with the greatest player of all time, which means that if you're not even the greatest player on your team, then what does that look like? I mean, Iverson, when he
Uh,
was on the 76ers, hands down the best player on the Sixers. And I mean, he won an MVP. There's arguments that he was the best player in the league for several years. So, I mean, and basically doing it alone, where Pippen had a lot more help than Iverson ever had. Namely Michael Jordan, the greatest ever. So, I mean, what does Pippen's career look like without Jordan? That's really tough. We'll never know that. I mean, the year that Jordan was gone and played baseball, Pippen led that team, and they were okay. They weren't great, but they didn't win a championship, and they didn't, they were okay. And after Jordan ultimately retired, I think Pippen played another year or two after that. He was solid, but I think he benefited a lot from Jordan. That's not taking anything away from having him. I just think he had a whole lot of opportunities because everyone's focused on Jordan that gave him a lot more leeway to be great. And he was great by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know. They're right there somewhere. They're close for me. I don't know what number they'd be at, but they're pretty close. I mean, and again, without choosing a specific number, I'm going to say a number. They're like 7 and 8, or 9 and 10, or 11 and 12. They're right there, neck and neck for me. Let's put it that way. Like wherever you would put them, they'd be close to neck and neck for me.
That argument you used on Scottie Pippen is the exact argument I would say. Dwayne Wade isn't in the top 20.
Wow.
I'd put him top 25.
I mean, again, the problem is that there's so many guys, right, that have played basketball really, really well. And so, like I said, it's so hard for me to just, Sami Zayn will win. I'd have to, like I said, I'd have to sit and actually create a list to know where Dwayne Wade would fall. It feels like in my mind, Dwayne Wade should be in the top 20, but there's so many guys out there that it's so hard to say. Definitely top 25 for sure. And, he's obviously in the NBA's top 50 of, that they did, top 50 of all time. And I think they even extended that to 75 recently. So, I mean, he belongs in that conversation for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know how high or low on the list he actually is until I start writing names down. And it's hard because it's hard to remember every single person too. There are names that, like, I'll forget about that person. Someone say, "Well, what about?" Oh shit, that's right. That person does belong. It's like, oh shit, I totally forgot about so and so.
Like an Oscar Robinson.
Right. Yeah.
Like
an Oscar Robertson,
probably, but sure. Like I'm not familiar enough with him to say for a fact on what position he'd be. Like,
right. Yeah.
He's probably in there. I wouldn't know where to place him though.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the problem too, is that there's older guys that I'm not familiar with that were around before I was alive, and that I've seen some of them in video clips and stuff, but I don't have the same relationship with them that I have with guys that have been playing currently, like with the Kobe's or the LeBrons or even the Michael Jordans or the Scottie Pippens, So I was lucky enough being older to get to see Michael Jordan play, in his prime. And so, yeah, I mean, it's tough because I didn't get to see, I could very easily be discrediting what Bill Russell did and how important he was. I never really got to see him play. I mean, I've seen highlights and I can go back and watch old games, and I've watched a couple, but I wasn't there at the time to witness it, to actually feel his impact like that. So I don't know. I mean, in that regard, I don't know. And same with Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, and Kareem to a certain extent. I mean, by the time I was privy to Kareem's career, he was already at the very, very, very end of his career. So, and I was very, I mean, that's very young. I mean, I remember Magic Johnson coming into the league in 81, and I was only 5 years old. So, like, I mean, it is, so, and Kareem was, 2 years left in his career, I think, or 3 years at that point. So he only played another 2 or 3 years. So I didn't see the bulk of his career either. So it's hard. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to figure out where those guys sit. And I do have some, recency bias, and it's hard. As much as you try to be objective, it's hard to take all your bias out to a certain extent too. I mean, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. Kobe Bryant is my favorite player of all time. And it's hard for me because he was also so good, and I could argue potentially the second greatest of all time, that it's hard for me my bias is in that also. It's hard to remove that because he's also so good that I know that it affects it as well. I know I have him probably higher than some other people because I know how I feel about him,
I made a calculation
I think he deserves it. Huh?
I made a calculation error because the card's not filled out yet. So Big E has 1 loss. Seth
Okay.
has one loss. So
Right.
if Big E loses this and Seth wins his match, Seth would win.
Okay.
I mean, but let's be honest. I don't see Big E losing this. Ilya hasn't won a single match, and Big E has only lost one.
But if Big E wins and Seth win, they're tied then, right?
Unless we go by the New Japan rules of.
Okay. Who's beaten who?
Yeah. Because
Tiebreakers
it's like,
first. Who's
well, you guys
actually
have the
beaten
same
who?
number of points, but you beat him in the match against him. So, like, do we really need a rematch? You guys, you already beat him once.
Right. And that's the case with Big E and Seth, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Big E already beat Seth once, right?
yes.
That was the one loss that Seth has.
Yes.
Okay.
And Big E's one loss is from Sammy.
Yeah. So in theory, I mean, I guess we don't need to see Seth and Big E again. I mean, if it comes down to a tie, Big E would be the winner because he's already beat Seth once. I'm good with that.
Yeah. We mentioned Kevin Durant, but we
Yeah.
didn't mention the other Kevin, Kevin Garnett. I think he cracks the top 20. Personally.
I mean, so he's a power forward. Let's talk about the other power forwards that are potentially up at that position. We've got Tim Duncan, we've got Karl Malone, we've got.
I put Tim Duncan number 10.
So yeah, I'm just trying to see who we have all time at that position.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to be. We've got Garnett, we've got Karl Malone, we've got Tim Duncan. I'm trying to think of who else is all time great at that power forward position. Carmelo Anthony played the 3 most of the time.
I think you'd put
LeBron's
Malone
the
above
3
him, though,
most of the
wouldn't you?
time. Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh was a number 4. Anthony Davis, even though right now he plays center a lot, I think he's technically considered a power forward. So, and his career's not over. So it's still, and he's still young to a certain extent. He's only 30. So, he's still making his career. But I mean, I'm trying to think, I mean, I don't, when you start talking about where he is in the list of best power forwards of all time, then you get into where he potentially lands in a list of 20 guys, right? Because if you have 5 positions and 20 guys, it doesn't always work out to 4 people per position, but I'm just saying, like, there are going to be some positions that have more spots than others. And so I don't know if 3 power forwards make it into the top 20. And for me personally, I think both Tim Duncan and Karl Malone are a little above Kevin Garnett. So if you've got 3 power forwards making it into the top 20, then Garnett belongs in there. If not, then he's just on the outside. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the thing is that, like, only one of them's in my top 10, and that's Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
The other 2 would be my top
and that's and it's debatable. I mean, for me, I think that for me, it really does come down to Tim Duncan and Karl Malone. Those are, in my opinion, I mean, you could put Charles Barkley in that conversation, but he's a little undersized, which makes even what he did even more impressive. But oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Big E with the win over Ilya. It's tough. I mean, for me, Karl Malone was.
I mean,
I feel like he was
have
more
4.
exciting to watch. They were both so good. I don't know. I mean, that's so tough there. I mean, for me, it's really 1 and 1A as far as power forward position goes between Duncan and Karl Malone, in my personal opinion. So I'm not sure. That's tough. I don't know. And there's other guys I'm sure I'm forgetting. I mean, I know there's other guys that played that power forward position that I'm probably forgetting that if somebody mentioned, I'd be like, oh, shit, well, they've got to be talked about too. I mean, because I don't know. I guess Garnett would be maybe 3, and then, Anthony Davis maybe 4. Or, I mean, I don't know. Anthony Davis maybe 3 and Garnett 4. I mean, it's tough because Davis's career isn't over yet. So,
I'd have Barkley at 4.
and there's other guys too. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm trying to think of who else played that position over the years that has been really, really good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the old Celtics had Kevin McHale at that position. The Lakers had James Worthy at that power forward position. Both guys were really solid basketball players. I don't know where they go as far as being slotted in the list of best power forwards of all time.
Like David Robinson.
Yeah, he's a center for sure. He was definitely a center. So, I mean, now we're talking about centers in the time, Shaq, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all those, Nikola Jokic. I mean, right now, Joker's making a case for being.
We didn't
by
even
the time
mention
he's
him
done,
yet.
I mean,
That's the first we've said his name.
I know. I mean, he could be, by the time it's all said and done, he could end up being the greatest center ever. I mean, the dude is a fucking beast at the moment. I mean, so, I mean, I back-to-back MVPs, and looks like they're positioned to do really good in the playoffs again this year. I mean, they've already blown. They're up 3-1 on the Lakers, and I thought they were going to sweep them. I mean, and he's played amazing. So, he's got to be in that conversation somewhere. I mean, unless we're talking about only retired guys, which isn't really fair. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, that's tough.
I'd have like Steph Curry in my top 20.
Yeah, I got that. I mean, you can't. I mean, I don't see how you can keep the greatest shooter in NBA history out of the top 20. I mean, he probably belongs in the top 10. I don't know where you slate him in there, but he probably belongs in the top 10. I mean, I don't. The only thing that keeps him out of the top 10 is his defense. He's the greatest shooter ever, and
I'm cool with putting him
five
at
championships
11.
now. I mean, yeah,
I'm cool with putting him at 11.
Now you can't. You put him at 11.
After Tim Duncan, I'm fine with that. Tim Duncan 10. Steph Curry 11.
Again, I mean, we got to start. I mean, it really starts with figuring out how many guys from which position are getting in, right? Because if you're looking at the point guard position, you've got Magic Johnson, you've got Steph Curry, you've got, a lot of other guys. I mean, names that I'm not even mentioning. That there's tons of names, that could potentially be in that the best point guard conversation. So, I mean, how many get in? I mean, I think Magic belongs on the list above Steph, but he might very well be the second point guard on that list. I mean, I don't, which puts him, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere right around there. I mean, maybe 11. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't. Huh?
You're talking Magic?
No, I'm talking Steph Curry.
Oh.
No, for me, Magic's top 5. I think Magic's the best point guard, in my opinion, to ever play the game. I think if you're picking 5 and you go position by position, and not necessarily but if you're actually doing, like, you're picking the top 5 guys at each position or your 5 greatest, and it doesn't work like that. But I'm just saying, if you did that, I think Magic's the best point guard to ever play the game. Michael's the best 2 guard to ever play the game. Kobe or LeBron's the best 3 guard to ever play the game. Tim Duncan or Karl Malone's the best 4 to play the game, power forward. And then, you've got several centers. I mean, you got Bill Russell, you got Kareem, you've got Wilt, you've got Hakeem Olajuwon, you got Shaquille O'Neal. You got several that, you can talk about being there.
In my list, I would have Magic ahead of Shaquille, but I'd have him behind Kobe in my list.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough conversation. I mean, it can be fun to have, but it's the thing is people are so invested in their guys and what they, their opinions. And so it's hard to, everyone thinks that they're right. So, If you go by statistics tell a lot, but that's not all of it either. So, I don't know. Tough questions.
So you know what? Um, I'm really thinking about this. Maybe I'd put him number 6. I don't know if he hits my top 5.
Ooh, Steph?
No, Magic.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I'd have Kobe 5,
Yeah.
and then 3 and 4's Kareem and Bird. I'm not sure which position I'd put which one, but it's a toss up with those two between who's 3 and who's 4, and Kobe 5.
Ooh, Seth kicks out. Yeah, I mean, I got, I think I've got, it's, Michael Jordan,
Oh,
Kobe
Jordan
Bryant,
and
Magic
LeBron 1 and
Johnson.
2.
You've got Jordan, LeBron 1 and 2?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I think I think for me, even though I don't want to put him there because I don't like the guy, I think LeBron's probably 4. I mean, I've got Magic. I've got Michael, Kobe, Magic, probably LeBron, and then God, I can't even round out 5. I don't even know who goes in at 5. There's just so many other people that could be in that spot for me. That's a tough one there, but I think those are probably the top 4 in my opinion. And I hate putting LeBron there just because I don't like him, but you can't argue with how great he's been. I mean, but um, for me, Magic and Kobe were both better, I think, than LeBron. That's just my personal opinion. But again, Magic's career was cut short. He didn't play. He doesn't have the longevity that LeBron has, so his numbers definitely don't look the same. But and for me personally, I think Kobe's the second greatest basketball player to ever play the game. So, um,
So I would have.
I
I
I
think.
firmly believe that that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player to ever play. But if somebody wanted to argue that Kobe might be better, I would listen to that argument. I think that debate is a viable debate. I mean I think there's room for discussion. I don't think it's true. I think Michael's better, but I think there's room for discussion.
So
I think the thing that holds LeBron back is just he doesn't. For me, I think what puts LeBron at 4 or 5 behind those guys is just he's not the winner that those guys were. He doesn't have that same killer instinct that those guys had. And that's, I think, the difference for me when it comes to LeBron. I think that's why he's a little bit on the outside looking in. But that's my personal opinion. So who won the round robin tournament? Sammy Joe.
it
Now
was
that we spent
Biggie.
the last half of it talking about basketball.
I, I, I mean, I still want to talk more basketball too. All right. So 6 would be Magic, 7 would be Shaq, 8 would be Wilt Chamberlain, 9 would be Bill Russell, and 10 would be Tim Duncan. I think that's my top 10.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I gave you my 4. I'd have to sit with the 5 and 5 through 10. I mean, I don't know. Somewhere in no particular order is Shaquille O'Neal, Kevin Durant, Allen Iverson, Steph Curry. Man, I don't even know. I guess maybe a Wilt Chamberlain. I don't even know. Like, yeah, Wilt, I guess, would be there somewhere, probably. And I don't know if that's another 5. I might already have hit another 5. I mean, I'd have to organize those in some sort of order. And again, I'm not even sure. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I mean, there's so many guys that I know that I'm overlooking and missing at the moment that I'd have to sit with like the list of who's the greatest of all times and all those things to remember all the names and to give fair weight to everybody. But just off the top of my head, those are the top 4 in my order, and then I round out the bottom 6 in some amalgamation of those other guys I mentioned. So
There's so many names. Like It made me feel like I could say that Dwayne Wade's not top 20 because, like, there's so many names.
Yeah, yeah. There are so many names. I mean, that's one of those that's an endless debate because he was so good, though. I mean, he's definitely, if he's not top 20, he's definitely top 25 or 30. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got to be there. I mean,
He,
for
he, he
sure.
he's probably somewhere around like 23, I'd say. Like he's up there. He's close.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
all right.
Drew
We are
did
at
not
the end.
make it,
Okay, good.
but Randy did.
Okay.
Randy
So,
beating Seth guaranteed his position, and so the tag team is Randy and Seth versus the Mysterios. Big E versus Bobby Lashley. So Drew
okay.
will face me, and the winner gets an opportunity at the mid card championship. And I'd like to do something for Sammy because, like, Sammy
So,
had an impressive showing.
so our winner of the round robin was Big E,
Yes.
and he will face Bobby Lashley at Night of Champions and is our new #1 contender for the Enter the Square Circle World Heavyweight Championship. Number 2 and number 3. I'm sorry, were Drew and Seth? No, Seth and Randy. Seth and Randy. Who came in which one? Seth came in, or did it tie? Same amount of points?
Seth is number 2.
Okay, so Seth is number 2 and Randy number 3. So they'll be the tag team. Those guys will face Los Mysterios at Night of Champions for the World Tag Team titles. Those guys will by default be Sammy's guys because the Mysterios are mine. So Sammy now has Randy Orton and
Well,
Seth freaking Rollins on his, guess technically on his squad. He had
well,
Orton
the
already,
thing
but
is I guess Randy's number 2 now, but because he beat Seth. But the thing
oh,
is that when we were going into the match, Seth's position was already guaranteed. He was
okay.
he was facing Randy to get the number 1 spot,
Okay.
but he lost,
Yeah. So
so he
yeah,
has
I
the
mean,
number 3 spot now.
at this point, there's really no difference between 2 and 3. I mean, it is what it
Yeah.
is. They're both getting to wrestle in the, for the tag team churn. I mean, there's really only a difference between #1 and number 2 or 3. So, I mean, or number
So
1 and the rest, right? I mean,
if Seth would have won and Big E would have lost, then Seth would be number 1. But neither of those things happened, so he's number 3 now.
all right. All right. So we will be back next week with the opening round matches of our King of the Square and Circle Legends tournament, of which the winner will face the winner of Bobby. Well, no, I'm sorry. We'll have an opportunity to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship at some point in the near future or in the future.
In the
Is it a
future.
year? How long do they have? How long
How
do they have to
long?
use it?
How long is it going to take you to download the winner?
That's a good question. All right. Uh, So, yes. All right. So, as usual, thank you for joining us again. Let's see. Scan that. See the little horsey? If you scan that, it takes us to all of our social medias. You can find us on Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are everywhere. Check us out. Got a lot of shorts on TikTok. People seem to like those. So scan that horsey, that QR code, and it will take you there. Or you can just search Workhorse Wrestling Network on almost any media or social media platform, and you can find us. Here is our schedule. On Monday mornings at 10 a.m., we have Seeing Stars with Dolores and Jay News, where they talk about all the up and coming stars. Most they focus on New Japan and GCW, but they talk about a lot of other indie promotions and up and coming stars. On Tuesday nights, we have the cookout. Please join us this Tuesday for our WWE Fantasy Draft, in which we will have guest star Chase Oliver from Around the Point Network joining us, and he will be serving as the judge, as myself and Sammy. It'll be
Uh,
myself versus Sammy Joe versus
that,
Anika.
that
We
was
will be
last Tuesday.
drafting. What?
That was last Tuesday. So go to the channel,
I apologize. You're right. That was last Tuesday now. I am sorry. You're right. Go back and check that out. I apologize. Then on Wednesdays, we have our All for Naught reviews. We should have a Monday Night Raw review, short review, and an NXT review by Wednesdays. On Thursdays, you'll get our Aftermath of Dynamite short AEW Dynamite review. On Friday, you can join us live for Friday Night Fight starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we watch SmackDown, WWE SmackDown, and usually Rampage live. And then Saturday, we have Under the Radar short reviews of TNA, MLW, BTE, and Ring of Honor, or being the Dark Order, whichever is going on at the moment. Then Saturday night, we're back for live Collision watch along starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Sundays, which you're here with us now, we always have entered the square circle. Well, almost always. But like as Sammy will tell you in just a minute, card is subject to change. Sorry, that was your cue to say card was subject. Obviously, we didn't work that out well. So, needless to say, card is always subject.
Well, you see, you had made a card, and it changed.
That's true. There you go. So, unless you got anything else to say, I will get out of here before I fuck anything else up more. So, peace.